Welcome, PME. I'm running through my connected classroom this morning with you guys. I'm trying to do it in under 10 minutes, so I'm going to speak as quick as I can here. This particular lesson is a hybrid lesson, and essentially the students will be working on a blended classroom setting that will use a mixture of asynchronous learning networks that include Brightspace, hosted by our district, which will be the design space for community discussions, as well as a collaborative space for co-creating knowledge and for community blogging that they choose to do. As the lesson progresses and students begin to work, it's possible that we will see them shift into synchronous learning networks that they may choose to utilize while they're doing their work. Examples might be Skype or Google Hangouts. And essentially, those are for the work that require real-time conversations and collaborations. There's a few things that basically are assumed in my particular lesson. I come from a self-directed high school, and essentially, students do initiate the learning process through online materials and information for this lesson. This would be for a grade 12 who is basically using this as a capstone for their course in ideologies. And so these are some of the curriculum outcomes which essentially grade 12s are expected to know and to do from this lesson that I have designed. So these are coming right from the provincial outcomes. And then, of course, when we break it down into backwards design and planning, we come up with some specifics. Essentially, students will know by the time they're done this how to access information, how to respond to others, and how to collectively solve issues that happen in their community. And then 3 essential questions that they can ask. You can read from the screen how important they are and how a lot of the curriculum actually is taught. But then there's a lot of hidden curriculum that is taught in this type of lesson. And at the end of the day, a student will be able to plan and coordinate with others, make suggestions to improve communities, communicate with others, and essentially a lot more beyond that. When I'm thinking about making this lesson, it brought me back to competencies that were just brought in as a ministerial order in 2013 by the Alberta government. And essentially, it has 8 of these key competencies that students need to be doing throughout every type of subject area that they study. So I thought the best way to do this would be to kind of borrow from an idea of a teacher that presented during the teachers convention. And essentially he said, if you look at it this way, global citizenship is something that essentially, if you have that in the middle, all of the other 7 competencies will be taught under the banner of global citizenship. So I thought, well, what better way than to make a lesson about global citizenship and have all these competencies in place to try and manage the information. Okay, so I decided to use a TED Ed lesson. So let me switch out to that and we'll go there. So with the TED Ed lesson, again, it's something that you need to be able to set up and to ultimately build lessons where you can flip other videos, but essentially they become your lessons. So the kid would come to this particular site and they would watch this video, and obviously I've generated a number of questions that they can think about as they watch. When they click into think, I have basically addressed 12 very open-ended questions, which ultimately they can pause and stop the video, answer the questions at that time. And then when it goes into dig deeper, I actually have additional resources that they may choose to explore to kind of deepen their own knowledge. So supplemental readings. Again, how are we going to consume information? I've given a great video on making sure that the media that you're using is going to be effective and valuable for what your goal is. And then I thought I would embed kind of a baseline global IQ. Where do you stand right now? So again, this has a quiz application where they open up this screen and they're able to quiz themselves. Ultimately, in the end, I talked about this discussion and basically how are we going to do this? Maybe we start with social media, and then just a question to them: how can they use social media as a medium to go ahead and have a citizenship movement among youth? So again, it's just something to think about. Finally, what I'm going to do is essentially set it up so that all these questions and all this discussion naturally trends over to D2L Brightspace, which will open up right now. And again, this is not the actual site itself, but this is exactly what it looks like. You'll recognize this as being very similar to our OnCue platform. Again, this is something that we use in the district. It's safe, it's accessible, but essentially when we start to have communication, I can lead the direction of having them do blogs or chats, or again, discussions, how we have discussion boards in our groupings. I'm finding that a lot of key discussions and ideas and building come from these discussion boards. So I think what I might do is actually have the questions on these discussion boards and have the students actually apply and reflect and go off one another's answers and reflections so that they can start to build their own knowledge. Okay, as we move forward in this process, it's important that students recognize once they've got through the TED Ed and they've posted on the D2L discussion boards that they can begin to narrow down, basically it's this, what community issues would you like to address? And so I thought I could set up a couple of websites for them that essentially can take them through analyzing community problems. Well, this will require students to reach out beyond themselves, right? So basically read some news, talk to some adults, maybe hit the municipal website, the provincial website, even the federal website or beyond, basically problems that they see that need to be addressed, problems that they're interested in, and bring them back into the boards, okay? So through this work, students can narrow down what community issues they'd like to address, okay? Students will need to have some sort of direction to the posts and what they choose to work on. So essentially, it's one of those knowledge formation communities where I just stand back and as a guide on the side, I start to see it unfold, step in where I need to step in, and then ultimately kids become the masters of the collaboration, okay? So once they have the issues decided upon and what they want to use to solve them, I essentially am going to take them back into this particular spot where we look at global citizenship, and basically they have to go through all of these questions. Now, when they do these questions, it's done in a group situation, so they might decide to use the Skype or the Drive, or they might even decide to meet online, maybe have a Google Word doc. But essentially, you can see as all these radios come off from critical thinking, problem solving, creativity, and innovation, kids are able to go through these and ultimately answer them in a way that addresses the issue that is in question. What needs to be solved? And in doing that, and again, these questions were borrowed from a colleague that's in teaching and innovation in the Edmonton Catholic School District. But again, great ideas that I thought I would use, okay? So here's the other part, the personal growth and wellness, collaboration and communication. So same kind of thing. Kids need to be able in these collaborative groups and efforts, and sometimes even on their own in blogs, because I think I might have them reflect on their own even after they're done collaborative attempts, because sometimes that's not the most natural thing for kids to do, and then move on. So moving forward from that, I guess just to end it, because I'm almost there, I've only got a minute to kind of wrap up this lesson, is this. I want to be able to show you something that came to my mind as I looked at this, okay? And it's this. You'll recognize this as being a snakes and ladders thing, right? This is one of those things that it's a game. You never know where it's going to go. Every role and decision that is made essentially takes you somewhere else, takes you in a different direction. And that's kind of how I think what this lesson is all about. It's set up for me to step aside. It's basically designed for the kids to make meaning within the curriculum, but they're doing it in a way that ultimately allows them to be the contributors, the decision makers, the bloggers, the reflectors, and to ultimately chew on issues that are real world problems. I'm interested to see what might be some of the results that come out of this, but ultimately there are lots of really, really different, interesting things that I feel will come out of this lesson. And so I hope that you will read the write-up on this so that you guys can begin to understand. Oh, one last thing. In the end, I want kids to be able to come together in a collaborative, basically citizenship summit, okay? And they'll explain their projects, and it'll be like a community of learners. Thanks.